So this is Ellen's Woolly Wonders. That's one of my three-dimensional chili ristras hanging there next to the sign. And we're going to cover today, when we talk about three-dimensional knitting, we're going to talk about casting on technique. We're going to do a short demonstration on short rows, Intarsia technique, how to finish your chilies, and also yarn choices and how that affects what your finished product looks like. We're going to start today by talking about casting on techniques. I always use a chunky weight wool yarn for these. You're going to felt it afterwards, so you want to make sure you pick something that's feltable. When you cast on, I always tie on to the needle. You don't have to, you can use a slip knot. But then casting on is as simple as wrapping it around your finger and just slipping it onto the needle. Wrapping it around your finger, slipping it onto the needle. That's a simple cast on. You can use this in the beginning of the stitches, the beginning of a row, in the middle of a row, or at the end of a row. That's as simple as cast on is. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate short rows. And in this pattern, I've already started this pattern. I'm on a row where I need to do a short row. So it's going to tell me to purl 6. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it's going to tell me to wrap and turn. So I'm going to slip the stitch. I'm going to wrap the stitch. I'm going to slip the stitch back to the left needle. I'm going to wrap the stitch to the front, and then I'm going to turn around. And we all know that when we knit, the yarn should be to the back, and when we purl, it should be to the front. So when you're doing short rows, you're switching back and forth, and you have to make sure the yarn is in the right direction. Now the pattern calls for me to knit 3. So I'm going to knit 3, and then I'm going to turn again. And I'm going to slip the stitch. I'm going to wrap the stitch. I'm going to slip the stitch back. I'm going to wrap it again, and now when I turn around, I can purl. So it's going to tell me to purl 2, and I'm going to purl 2, and then I'm going to slip again, or wrap again. Slip the stitch, wrap the stitch, slip the stitch, wrap it again, and turn around again, and now it's going to tell me to knit 1, and then wrap again. Slip the stitch back, wrap it again, flip around, and now it's going to tell me I can purl 6, and I have 6 left. So I'm going to purl those 6 stitches. And that's how you do short rows. And when you do short rows, it gives you more stitches in a small area, so it adds shaping to your pattern. So in this particular pattern, it adds a little bubble there in the process. And when I end up with a finished design, it actually gives me shaping, so it's kind of like putting the elbow in a sweater. It allows it to change directions and add shaping by putting a little bubble in there in the process. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Intarsia. And Intarsia is a way of adding colored spots or spots of color to your product. So what we're going to do is you can go ahead and actually just tie the yarn right onto the new color, right onto the main color. And I'm going to go ahead and make a spot. I'm supposed to knit the next 3 rows or work stockinette in the next 3 rows. So I'm going to go ahead and knit 3 stitches. Oops. And then I've tied that yarn right on to the main color. So I'm going to go ahead and hold that to the back, to the left, and I'm going to pick up the new color and work with the new color. And I'll probably do 2 stitches with the orange. Then I'm going to hold the orange to the back left, and I'm going to pick the green up from the bottom right, and I'm going to knit the next to the end of the row in the green. Now that I've got the first 2 stitches in there, I'm going to turn around and purl back. And I'm going to make this spot a little bit wider. So I'm going to purl to 1 stitch before the orange starts. And then I'm going to hold the main color to the left, pick the orange up from underneath, and I'm going to go ahead and purl. And I'm going to actually purl 4 of the orange. But you don't want to ever carry the yarn more than 3 stitches. So when you get to the 3rd stitch, before I hit the 4th one, I want to wrap again. So I'm going to hold this, I'm going to pick the yarn up, the green up over the orange and hold it to the left so that when I can purl from underneath. And then I'm going to do the same thing again when I switch back. Hold the orange to the left, pick the green up from underneath, and continue with that. Now when I go back, now I'm going to make it the spot a little smaller, so I'm going to knit 3, and I'm going to knit 2 orange, hold the green to the back, the orange gets picked up from below, knit 2 of the orange, again orange to the back, green from down below, and I'm going to knit to the end of the row with green. Actually, I'm going to knit 2, and then I'm going to knit 1 more orange and finish the row in green. And now when I go back, I can purl this entire row in green, and I've got a spot, an extra spot in there. Again, you never want to carry your colors behind that you're not working with more than 3 stitches at a time on a row, because it tends to make it bunch. But good. And that is how you do Intarsia and make spots in your pattern. Okay, when we talk about finishing this product, we're going to stitch it together. It's a 3-dimensional thing, but it's done on a flat, has to be sewed together. So when you fold it, you're going to have the knit side out, and you're going to see it kind of folds up along the center. If you look at the edges, each edge has a series of balls and bars. I like to call them balls and bars. And you're going to pretty much match the bars all the way up and sew the bars together. And that's as easy as sewing this together is. So you're just going to catch the bars all the way up. And as you sew it, you can tug it a little harder, and that'll kind of cause it to kind of change shape. It'll pull it up a little tighter. And each one is different, so each chili is going to be different, so it doesn't make any difference how you sew them together, how much tension you put on the seam as you do it, because they'll all end up a little different. And when you wash them, they're going to change shape too. So sew them all the way up. Just pick up the bars. And when you get up to the top, you're going to continue to sew all the way up to the top, and kind of to where that first couple 6 stitches were, and then just tie it off. Now, because this is going to be 3-dimensional, you can actually just take this and hide the end inside. Okay, you're not going to see the end. You don't have to tie it off. You don't have to bury it anywhere in particular. And then you can just cut that end off. The other thing you need to do once you've done that, once you've gotten that finished, is attach the top to it. And the top is, I went ahead and did this one separately, is I-cord and just some cast-on stitches. And you're going to attach that, sew that to the top of it, and that's going to give you your chili. Now, when it comes to yarn choices, you can use a variety of different yarns for these projects. Like I said, I like a chunky heavyweight yarn. That's my homespun, so that's my chunky heavyweight. But you can also use a worsted weight. Gives you a little different, same shape, same pattern, different sized yarn, and this is an even smaller one. So you can use different weights of yarn, different size needles, and end up with different sizes chilies. So you can get a variety of different ristras or looks to most of these patterns. The only patterns that I make that you have to use to gauge are the hobby horses, because you wouldn't want a micro head on the stick. So those are the only ones that change gauge, that you have to have the right gauge. But these you can use different sizes. So, and that's my demo on doing 3-dimensional knitting patterns.